Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for these live stream reviews. We're excited to be with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to be reviewing live streams for our Inner Circle subscribers. We get asked all the time, how do I get you guys to review my live stream? And it's real easy. All you got to do is go subscribe to Inner Circle. You can do that at collaborateworship.com or use the link in the description. Now, there's a lot more benefits than just getting your live stream reviewed whenever you're a part of Inner Circle. You also get access to one-on-one coaching calls with either Dylan or myself, and you can schedule those as many times as you need to while you're an Inner Circle subscriber. You also get access to our private chat group, which is on Slack. That's probably the best part. We're having a good time in Slack, people asking all kinds of questions, and you don't just get your questions answered by Dylan and myself, but also from the other Inner Circle subscribers, which has been absolutely incredible watching this group just help each other out. That's the fastest way to get your questions answered when it comes to audio-visual problems is to be a part of Inner Circle. And here's the cool thing. It's just $12 a month. $12 a month gets you access to all that. That is sweet. So use the link in the description. Come join us in Inner Circle. We would love to have you. All right, we are going to jump in to these live stream reviews. And the first one that's up is from Aaron. He is from Restoration Life Church of Sacramento. He says he's submitted his live stream to us before, so this is a second go around here. He wants some room acoustic treatment recommendations. So what we'll do is we'll take a listen, take a watch first, and then give our recommendations.
Yeah, and be sure to comment throughout this video. That's the fun part about doing these live streams, that we get to interact with you guys, so be sure to let us know what you think.
Awesome. All right, here we go.
No shadow you won't lie, mountain you won't climb.
All right, so it looks like he's got an acoustic set going on here. I'm going to fast forward to the end and see if we got any full band going on here. All right, cool. So it looks like we had an acoustic set, just an acoustic and a vocal. I always enjoy mixing those simple sets. It's definitely a lot easier. But from a sound standpoint on this one, I thought it really sounded great. The acoustic was nice and full. It had a lot of body and a lot of depth to it as well. And the vocal sounded good as well. Maybe just a little too aggressive on the effects that were on the vocal. There was some delay going on. I would have brought that down a little bit. It was almost to the distraction point. I love a nice dose of effects on an acoustic set, but if you put too much in there, then people are hearing. You really don't want the average listener to notice that they're there, and I feel like with as much that was there, somebody probably would have, even your average listener would have noticed that. So I would just back those off a bit. Other than that, sounds great. But I did notice one thing with the vocalist. They had like a side shot going on, and he was probably like a good foot away from his mic, if not more. And that's a problem. Although he did sound good. But I imagine if the full band were there, you may be struggling with feedback or something like that because the drums be coming through the mic and all the ambient noise and things like that. So we gotta get with that vocalist and say, hey man, here's the deal. No more than an inch away from your microphone. And a lot of people think, well, when you do that, it sounds too full. There's too much bass in the mic. And I get that. And that's why you use a low cut filter. You set around 180 hertz and it solves that problem. But then you still get a full, nice sound and great feedback rejection. So I harp on my vocalists. Do not pull that mic away from your mouth. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Cade's so used to doing vocalist mic technique that when he's just speaking, he does it too. And so I've told him here lately he's got to pull it away because too many plosives when he's talking like that.
Yeah, I know, because I like to hold a mic still. I don't know if it's like a safety net or even when I'm speaking at church.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hold it right there up next to my mouth. And I'm trying to pull it back a little bit.
It's helpful for the gain, though, but there's also nothing going on when you're talking. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I need to be like Stephen Furtick and like hold it over here, and you know how he.
Some people would probably say that they don't want that singing that close too because of plosives. But if you're singing with the proper technique, you can mitigate it. You just don't want to be pronouncing your P's too much.
I really never noticed it too much as far as a singing.
Probably 'cause
voice
there's so
goes.
much other things going on.
Yeah, that's true.
cool.
What'd you think about visuals?
I think it looks pretty good. It might be a little dark on the stage. It's looking kind of fuzzy too. I don't know if that's like the stream quality or the camera quality or what. That's really the first thing I noticed is that I can't really make it out any detail on his face when it's in a wide shot like that. So maybe it would serve you better to zoom that wide shot in some more to kind of compensate for the lack of visual quality, so you can see a little bit more of his face. His skin tone looks good. I noticed the congregation looks a little blue, but it looks like you might have some windows in there or something, so that maybe they're getting hit with daylight or just another color of light. But he's the subject of the shot, and his skin tones look good. So good job on doing that. I think both of those shots, my biggest recommendation is they're both a little wide. I would see if you can zoom them in some more. Maybe that's as far as you can go to. So you might even look into getting a lens that will zoom in further if you have the budget for it.
Cool.
All
right, let's move on to the next one. While I load that up, Dylan, you want to take a look at the comments?
Nobody's commenting yet.
Man, y'all are quiet today. Be sure to leave your feedback in the comments.
Got some people letting us know where they're from. Someone from Tennessee, someone from California, and someone from Ireland.
Nice. Great to have you. All right, next up we have Nate, and he's from Good Shepherd Church. He's looking for some help with his drum mix and his vocal mix. He says they just don't seem to stick out enough with the band in at full energy. So let's check it out.
There was a moment when the sky lit up, flashing light was breaking. When all was lost, he crossed eternity. The King of Life was on the move, or in a dark cold tomb.
All right, so one thing whenever we're like wanting things to like stand out in the mix, like you're saying, I'm just not hearing enough drums or I'm not hearing enough vocals or whatever. A lot of times it's not that we need more of something, although that's where we always tend to go. We live in the culture of like, just give me more, right? Sometimes you need to, or a lot of times you need to think of what do I need less of for these things to be able to poke out in the mix. And in this case, I hear the acoustic guitar really overwhelming the mix. So I would bring that acoustic guitar down so that some of the other things could shine. And you're going to notice that a lot of your mix falls into place whenever you bring that acoustic guitar down. Especially in a song like this, the acoustic guitar should be more like this undertone rhythmic thing going on that you don't necessarily you can't necessarily pick it out, but you notice whenever it's missing. That's how I would mix the acoustic in a song like this. Let's keep listening. Yeah, you mentioned the vocal mix not being able to poke through, and that's what's doing it. The acoustic guitar is just getting in the way of those vocals, so they can't pop through at all. And another thing, other than just bringing the acoustic guitar down, you could also EQ it so that all you're getting is those upper frequencies and not so much of the body of the guitar. I'm hearing a lot of the 500 to 900 hertz range in that guitar, which is just not really... is not very complementary to the way the guitar sounds. So I would put like a PEQ filter somewhere around 500, 600 hertz and really take a pretty big cut, like maybe even a 6 dB cut out of that guitar. And then maybe even add a low shelving filter at 900 hertz and bring that down about 3 dB. And that'll thin out the guitar even more. Just thin it out until it still has a little bit of depth to it, but not much. It just becomes more of this rhythmic, I think Dylan would call it a glorified shaker is what you want it to sound like. See, and I'm hearing the drums come through. I hear the kick drum and the snare drum, but I'm not hearing the cymbals a lot. So you might want to bring those overhead mics up a bit in the live stream mix for the drummer so you get more of that cymbal energy. And the snare drum is sounding a little bit funny to me, and I think it's because it sounds dry. It's just kind of like a pattern. Try adding some reverb to that snare drum mic and see if it fixes that problem. I would use like a room reverb. If you're using the X32, there's a reverb preset called Drum Treat, which I tend to like for that snare drum. But just a small bright room is what usually sounds best on a drum mix. And add quite a bit of that reverb on the snare mix, and you're going to find that sound a lot better. I know that reverb is like Dylan's favorite thing on a snare drum. He's always trying to get that right. It's important to him. And I agree, it is important. So yeah, I think I want to stop there and fix that acoustic guitar mix. You're going to be surprised at how that fixes things. And then come back and resubmit this once you have that adjustment made, and then we can dive into some other things as well.
I was reading comments a second ago, but did you comment on how the vocals are kind of like a little too out front?
Oh, hail the Lord of heaven and earth. Oh, hail King Jesus. Oh, hail King Jesus.
I wouldn't say they're like too far out front. I just say you can't really hear the bass guitar or the electric guitar.
Yeah. To me, it sounded like they're more out front than on top of the mix. That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's just that fight going on between the acoustic guitar and the vocals. They're just kind of pushing both of them, and so they're just fighting each other. I'd be really interested to hear what that sounds like with the acoustic guitar fixed only, and how much that's going to change things.
Somebody said a little reverb on the vocal might help too.
Yep, I agree.
And then someone in the comments was asking, he said he struggles with keeping the vocals under control. He's usually behind the bass playing during service and mixing the online mix at the same time.
Oh, buddy.
That's kind of impressive.
Yeah.
What would you suggest doing? And I asked for clarification on what he means by under control. Like, they don't have proper mic technique, or maybe they need some compression. Someone else said that. Waiting on a comment back from him, but
To keep them under control, I'm imagining he's saying they're going in and out of the mix depending on how loud they're singing. And of course, compression is necessary on vocals. Let's start with mic technique first. Touched on this already, but their mic should never leave more than an inch from their mouth. We don't need to do the Mariah Carey thing where they're like doing this number, and like they sing the loud note. No, we don't need them to do that because we have compression for that now. So the instruction for vocalists is never let the mic come less than an inch from your mouth. And if you have a problem with that, just touch the mic to your chin and leave it there, because that's where we need it to be. And that's going to help you with control, but you're also going to have to add compression on that vocal mic to have the control there. I have a blog post and a video that'll walk you through how to do vocal compression, so I'm not going to go into that here. Just go search our YouTube channel for vocal compression, and you will find that video.
for the fun of it, how quickly could you throw some compression on me to show what it would?
You already have compression on your mic right now.
So you have compression for speaking, which is probably a little bit differently than when you're singing, right?
A little bit different, but
Threshold's different.
Mostly the same.
Yeah.
So right now, Dylan's compression, I'm looking at my compression right now, actually. We have a ratio of 3, and I have the attack set to 10 milliseconds and hold set at 0 and release at 52 milliseconds. And I'm compressing about to where the gain reduction meter is showing about -6 dB. So my threshold is set at -36 right now, but I really can't give you a setting for that because it's going to change. What you need to look at is that gain reduction meter to where you're hitting -6 dB during the average loudness that they're singing or talking or whatever.
And it makes a really big difference with speaking mics too, because I was mixing this past Saturday, which I never get to do, which is fun. And, I was just kind of tinkering with it to get different people talking on the mic to sound normalized throughout their speaking volumes. So it's not like that you can barely hear this. And then they're all really loud all of a sudden. Like you can tell when you're listening to my microphone. I was just talking really loud, but it didn't sound much louder than whenever I was quiet. Blah, blah, blah. So that's what it does.
Yep. You got to have it. You got to have compression on everything, especially for a live stream mix. Back in the day, we didn't have to live stream and it was just the room mix. You could get away with not having as much compression, but live stream requires it.
Some people, I've seen a lot of comments on YouTube too, where people are like, oh, but then you lose all the dynamics.
Not all of them. You're not, well, I mean, you can. If you really throw some compression on there, you can like kill all the dynamics. But what we're trying to do is limit the dynamic range. So just to give you a visual, like a singing vocal, let's say the dynamic range is this big. It's probably a lot bigger than that because they can really sing soft and then they can really belt it out. So we're just using compression to narrow that dynamic range so that it's not so
irritating,
out of control. Yeah, because you're amplifying the sound, right? So you're even amplifying that dynamic difference whenever you're putting it through a sound system.
No compression is really irritating to listen to.
Yeah, it is.
Because they hurt your ears when they're singing out and you can't tell what they're saying when they're singing quietly.
Yep. So what you're looking for is that gain reduction meter on the compressor settings screen hitting about -6 dB. If you're hitting that point, you're really not going to notice the compression is there. There's still going to be dynamic range. It's just going to be a controlled dynamic range. If you start compressing more than that 6 dB mark, especially when you get past -9 dB on that gain reduction meter, that's when you're going to start. It's going to start sounding like something in front of their face because there's so much compression going on. So there's definitely a happy place. You don't want too much compression, but you also don't want too little. You need to find where it sounds good.
And someone said that mics at the chin seem to trigger proximity. What do you think about that?
I don't know.
I mean, it's definitely going to sound different if my mic's like this as opposed to like this.
Yes.
So,
but if somebody's having a hard time and their mic's going like this and this and this, I would rather have whatever problem comes from touching my chin than the problems that are from them doing this number.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sometimes it's what do you call that? Pick your battles sort of thing.
Pick your battles for sure. All right, let's look at the visuals real quick. I think your exposure it's looking a little bright, mostly on that gal in the middle. So maybe your lighting needs some adjustment so that it's even across the stage. I was watching this earlier, and one thing that stuck out to me immediately is that guy in the back left that's hidden behind somebody. And I actually noticed in another song that he was leading a song, and he kept on going in and out from behind another person. So that's just one thing visually that I'll notice really quickly in a live stream is when the stage is not organized very well as far as like where people are placed. So maybe work with how people are standing on the stage and how they're staggered and that good stuff. And then on this wide shot that we're seeing right now, I think we're seeing way too much ceiling. And maybe you're just trying to keep too much of the congregation from getting in the shot. But I don't think it's really necessary to see the rafters and the light fixtures up there. And then your lower thirds, I think it might look cool if you had a transparent background on those and maybe put what's it called, a stroke on the letters so that it stands out a little bit better on top of the footage. You'll just have to see what it looks like. But that's not too hard to do if you just do a quick Google search. I imagine you're probably using OBS and then just using a copy of what the congregation is seeing as far as the lyric slide. But I think that's a few ways that you can improve the look of it.
It looks like the camera might be mounted a little bit too high. Is why the perspective looks off to me, because it looks like it's looking down on them to me. Does it look like that to you? I'm going to guess this is a PTZ camera, the way that it's going back and forth. It looks like it's a pre-programmed like zoom in, zoom out sort of thing. So they may not be able to even move the camera because maybe it's mounted above a door or something like that to keep it out of the way. If you can move it down, ideally you want the camera lens to be eye level with the people on the stage. That's going to give you the best look, unless Dylan disagrees with that. I'm not the visuals guy.
It depends on your room. Like we can't have ours eye level because you'll just see the back of people's heads. So you got to get it as close as you can with what you're working with.
It's close to eye level with people on the stage, though. The camera is.
It's still a little higher, though.
A little higher.
Because it has to be.
Yeah.
But you can also get it lower if you use a longer lens, too, because I don't know how to explain how that works, but the more you zoom in, the less you're going to see of what's around it.
Yeah, and if you can, I would recommend like incorporating a second angle on this. Instead of us seeing this zoom in, zoom out thing, it's a little bit strange to actually see that happen. If you had a secondary angle, like even just like a fail-safe camera that's a super wide shot of the whole room that's sitting back here in a corner, you could go to that camera while the PTZ camera is zooming in and then come back to the PTZ camera so nobody actually sees that transition take place. Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out why it's even zooming out, but I guess you can't see that gal on the right in the close shot, huh?
Yeah.
If you can only work with one camera, I would say just zoom in to where you can see everybody on the stage, like get that gal in there too, and then just leave it like that. Get it framed up nice and good. The first thing I would fix is that key lighting though. Your pianist is looking kind of like a ghost. And like I said, that's probably just you need to adjust your lights. There's just too much on her, not enough on everybody else, and then adjust your exposure to compensate for that. But that would be the first fix that I would make.
Cool. Thanks for sending this in. Hey, look, there's like another angle. So maybe they already have that second camera. Anyway. All righty. Let's see what's up next is Darius from, it looks like Béthesda Ministry. He's looking for a better listening and viewing experience. He'll take all the critics, he says. You sure you want to open yourself up to that? He says, is the panning good? We have 7 background singers, and I panned them on the left and right side, max 50%, and I placed every vocal with a space difference of 10% in between. Interesting. I want to see how that sounds. Do the drums sound good? Do I need reverb? At this time, there's no reverb on the drums. I want to take my keys to the next level. I know they can sound better, right? Already put them on stereo with 2 XLR outputs. Awesome. Thanks for all that info. That really helps. Now let's check it out.
Real quick, I want to address this question from the last one.
Okay.
Someone said that that proximity effect in a bassy room is going to be amplified. Not if you put a low cut on it. Correct.
I mean, I would think so. I'm not an expert on proximity effect issues. I've never had the issue be so problematic that I did research into it. So,
I mean, if you're getting closer, it's picking up more of the bass frequencies that you can cut out.
Right.
You're just getting less bass frequencies like this.
Right.
So if you have a low cut on it, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So that's what I was saying.
Yeah. So put that low cut filter on your vocals.
Which should be on it anyway.
Yep. I set mine between 150, 180 hertz, usually 180 hertz, sometimes even 200 hertz. I just set it until I don't have those annoying low frequencies that don't need to be on a singing vocal.
Primarily so the bass guitar isn't coming through the vocal mics and the kick drum.
That too. Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't need those. It's fighting with everything else that's in that frequency.
I'm telling you, if all you had is 2 things, gain and low cut filter would get you a great mix. So learn how to use that low cut filter. It helps out a lot. Because even if the vocal didn't sound too boomy, because say they were holding their mic way out here, so it wasn't getting those low frequencies, you're still picking up low frequencies from the bass guitar and whatever's going in the room if you don't have that low cut filter on there. And we don't need any extra low frequency noise.
It just makes it sound bad.
We want to keep it clean. All right, are we ready?
Yeah, full screen that for us.
Yeah, sorry, I forget to do that sometimes. Awesome. What language is this?
I do not know. Actually, I should know that because I was talking to him about that not that long ago. I'm trying to remember now.
All right, so the first thing he asked us to comment on was the panning of the vocals. And I thought it was great. I thought that your vocals sounded like it was a choir going on. So great job with that. One thing that you could do to improve your vocal mix is that the lead vocal, the guy, his mic is sounding a little bit heavy in those low mid frequencies. I bet you if you put a peaking filter at about 500 hertz on him with a Q value of 3 and cut about 6 dB, you're probably going to notice that he sounds a lot better, a lot cleaner. So yeah. And then the female vocal that was kind of like doing those fills and things, she was a little loud in the mix, and I kind of wonder if she needed some more compression on her. So I would actually go through each vocal and check your compression on those. We talked about compression earlier, so I don't want to get too much into that. I'm just going to send you to our YouTube channel and say go search for vocal compression on the Collaborate Worship YouTube channel. You'll find that video and apply that technique to all of your vocal mics, and you'll find that you have more control and things aren't poking in and out as much as they are right now. Let's see. The other thing he wanted us to comment on was it the drums? I'm trying to remember.
I'm not sure.
All right, I'm going to have to go back to the submission here real quick. Let's see. Panning drums. Do the drums sound good? Does he need reverb on the drums? That's what he was asking. Let's listen for that. So you're using electronic drums, so they sound good. It sounds like there's already some reverb mixed into them by default, so I don't notice them sounding too dry or anything like that. The challenge with electronic drums is they probably come through 2 channels on your mixer, or maybe even just 1 channel. So you can't just put reverb on the snare drum or on the toms. So if you put reverb on the drums from the mixer, it's going to be on everything. And the problem with that is you don't want reverb on your kick drum mic. So if that's the case, if you want more reverb, I would say add some more reverb to the snare drum, and maybe you can do that on the drum unit itself. There's that little unit next to the drums that'll let you determine the balance between the different drums and probably add some reverb and even change the sounds. That's where you would do that on an electronic drum kit. You make all your changes pretty much there, and you do very little at the mixer. All right, let me make sure that there wasn't anything else that you wanted us to touch on. Take keys to the next level. I know they can sound better, right? So let me listen for that this time.
Chanson, vous allez chanter avec moi ensemble. Amen. Qui est capable de faire, qui connaît ça? Il est capable.
Yeah, on the keys, I would add some reverb to those for sure. I'm a big fan of a lot of reverb on the keys. Just, I don't know, modern worship, it just makes them sound, unless you're playing a really fast song, then you don't want all that reverb on there. But I would probably put like a hall reverb on the keys with a decay time of around 2 to 3 seconds, somewhere in there, and add quite a bit of it. It's going to bring those keys to life. I'd also experiment with the different sounds that keyboard will let you put or will let you use to see if you can find a sound, an originating sound from that keyboard that sounds more like you want it to sound. So yeah, great job, man. You're on a great track. What do you think on visuals?
Will you full screen that for me again? I talked to him a couple weeks ago, and we were kind of working on the color profile on his Blackmagic camera because it was looking really flat, and it's looking better now. I think you might even be able to add a little more contrast in OBS. And then 2 more adjustments I think we need to make is bump the tint up on this main camera. So you would push it towards the positive. It's really easy on the Blackmagic camera. It should be like on the top bar of settings on like the main screen. So bump that positive a few numbers, see how it looks. It's just looking slightly green. So we want to get it looking not green or magenta. So that's why you would add magenta to it. And then see if that throws off your white balance as far as how warm or cool it is too. You might have to adjust that a tiny bit. It might not, but if it's too cool or too warm, just go the opposite direction. I like that drum shot. The colors were looking good on that one. I think he said it was a Panasonic. They have 4 cameras, Blackmagic, 1 Lumix DMC G7, and 2 iPhones. Yeah, that's all I'm seeing though.
Well, I'm going to comment on vocal technique again because that's what I was watching whenever you're doing that. I guess that's just the theme of the day. They are holding their mic up and singing and bringing it way down, and then holding their mic up and singing, bringing it way down. Hold it up and just hold it there. Because you're kind of like picking up all this surrounding noise by moving it around. It's okay to bring it down a little bit so you're not like hearing your breathing or whatever, but keep it close to your mouth. That's what I would tell those vocalists.
I like to breathe right in my mic. Especially when you're up on stage talking.
Yeah, I'm sure people appreciate that too.
All right, I got a couple comments. Why no reverb on the kick? I like a little bit on the kick.
I don't know. I guess if you have reverb that's only coming through the high frequencies, like you have a low cut filter on your reverb itself, so you're not multiplying those low frequencies, then I guess it'd be okay.
You know why I would say no reverb on the kick? Because that's what the bass guitar is doing.
Pretty much.
The kick drum is rhythmic. The bass guitar holds down the constant bass tones.
Yeah.
Like we had a drum expert come in, and I think we've said this on another live stream, but he kind of got on to us for our sorry about it. He kind of got on to us for our kick drum mic positioning, and we had it too far out of the porthole, and so the kick drum went boom, which makes your sound really messy sounding.
There was more than that wrong with the kick drum. He came and gave us the kick drum whooping.
So he pushed it in a little bit more, so like the microphone itself was fully in the hole, and now our kick is just doom, and it sounds great because that's what it's supposed to do.
Yep.
We just became ear blind to it, honestly.
Yeah. Kind of get used to it. That's why it's good to bring in other people to listen to what you have going on, because they'll hear things that you've become used to. All right, we're ready?
Yes.
For what's next, we got Doug. This is from Grace Community Church of Belleville, Texas. And he wants to know, how do you find the sweet spot in the mix for the bass guitar? I want it to be present but not overwhelm. And he also wants to know, we have lots of mid-high instruments. Our worship leader does a great job having them play slightly different things, but I'd like suggestions to help make the best sound while keeping each instrument present. And the third thing is, singer is dealing with seasonal allergies. I use a little reverb to smooth out some rasp. Do you have other mixing suggestions to support him? Let's see. He wants us to start at around 23:30 timestamps. Let me get us there. All right, here we go.
Not face Goliath, but I've got my own giants. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness, on your faithfulness. You heard your children, and you hear your children now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You answered prayers back then.
All right, let me start by commenting on the instruments kind of all playing in that high mid range that you talked about. One thing that I would do is pull those high mids out of the acoustic guitar, since they're being covered by the other instruments. And you're going to notice the other instruments becoming more present whenever you do that. We just talked about that a little bit earlier. And we tend to talk about this on every live stream review, I think, is the acoustic guitar, the blessed acoustic guitar. You got to have it, but how do you make it sound good? So don't be afraid to thin out that guitar. I mean, really thin it out. It's going to sound terrible by itself, but it sounds really good with the band whenever you thin it out. And how you do that is, easiest way to do that is set a low shelving filter on the acoustic guitar around 900 hertz, and then bring that down 3 dB, maybe even up to 6 dB. Until it's thin, but not too thin. You'll find the sweet spot. Just use your ears to figure out what that is. And then you're going to find your other instruments sounding a lot better. And it looks like you have 2 electric guitars. The best way to keep those present and not overwhelm that same frequency spectrum is to pan your guitars. So in this case, the guy in the middle, I'd pan his a little bit to the left and the guy on the right a little bit to the right. That way it lines up visually. And when I say panning, I'm talking about like maybe 20% one way or the other. So not anything like crazy, but it would help a lot. All right, let's keep listening.
I'm standing on your faithfulness, on your faithfulness.
And on bass guitar, you talked about how do we keep it consistent in the mix. I think you're doing a pretty good job. I like the way that it's mixed. I think you have it just about right. To make sure it doesn't overwhelm the mix or get too quiet, the compression should be pretty heavy on the bass. It's the thing that you're going to compress the most, maybe even down to like on that gain reduction meter on your compressor settings screen. You may be compressing it like 9, 12 dB on average. And that's okay on the bass guitar. That's not okay on a vocal, but it is okay on a bass guitar because you don't really want it to change that much throughout the song. That's something that you want to remain steady and consistent. Last thing I want to comment on is that lead vocal. You talked about he has seasonal allergies. I'm not bothered by the rasp. And I also don't think anybody is bothered by a rasp in somebody's voice. Usually that's something that people compliment, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But I did notice his vocal is EQ'd a little bit too thick. It needs to be thinned out a little bit as well to bring some clarity to his vocal. So make sure you have that low cut filter on there somewhere around 180 hertz. And you may even try putting a low shelving filter similar to how you did on the acoustic guitar. Just set that low shelving filter to about 900 hertz and then drop it down 1 dB, 2 dB, 3 dB until his vocal, until it becomes clear. You don't want it to become too thin, so watch out to make sure that you don't do that. But you do want to add some clarity there with that low shelving filter. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Good job to that lead vocalist on that song, because that's a pretty technically challenging song to sing. I know, because I've done it. You did a good job. All right, let's talk visuals. I'm going to give you, for sure, 2 things to do. Number 1, like I said on a previous one, let's get that ceiling out of the shot. We don't need to see the ceiling tiles or the light fixtures or the speakers or anything like that. So if you're able to, let's zoom that in to where the top of the frame is maybe around the top of your projector there. And then let's warm it up a little bit because it's looking a little cool. And that might just be because of those blue lights you have that are casting some blue light onto them as well. It's not far off. It just needs to be a little bit warmer. And then again, with the key lighting, I don't know what kind of lighting you have up there, but it's looking a little inconsistent from person to person on the stage. So let's see if we can adjust that and get it a little more consistent from person to person. So those 3 things, I would do that now, and I think you'll have a better looking shot. Good job, though.
Yeah, thanks for sending this in. And I should have mentioned this first, but my first impression of your mix was great. Great job, man. I mean, it sounds nice and full. There's a lot of energy to it, so I'm really impressed with what you're doing. Sometimes I just get so focused into the details and trying to answer your questions that I forget to mention that, but great job, man. Really, good job.
All righty. Should we look at some comments here? Let's see. Said that the ECs are panned about 40% each side. That was Doug's live stream, right? Matuska?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's already doing that. Awesome.
Said the lead singer has a nasally quality, somebody. I didn't really notice that.
I didn't notice it either. But if somebody does have a nasally quality, that's like somewhere in the 500 to 700 hertz range. Use a PEQ filter there and you cut it out. Like my speaking voice has a nasally quality, mainly because I have seasonal allergies as well, so my nose is stopped up a lot. So I cut out that area to make myself sound less nasally. You can't get rid of all of it, but you can make it less pronounced. And I do that on Dylan too, because he has that same issue.
I was going to comment on one other thing with the vocalist, and it's kind of nitpicky, but it's something I've been working on lately, and that's pronouncing those D's correctly. Not need you, but need you. Not adding a CH to it. Most people don't really notice that, but that's just one of those things that takes your vocal skills to the next level when you can pronounce things without What's that even called when you pronounce things like that? There's a word
Enunciate?
for it, I'm sure.
Is it enunciate or?
Adding unnecessary syllables to words. I mean, I don't blame you because I'm pretty sure Elevation sings it like that too. I'm pretty sure they sing "Need You," and it bothers me every time I hear it.
It's easier than saying "need you."
I know, but we have a lady in our church that's been getting on to us for that like every week. She's like, "Dylan, you did it." I was like, "I know, I'm trying not to. I promise, I'm trying." It's a bad habit.
For the sake of all the English majors out there, pronounce the words right.
It does sound more professional when you pronounce it properly, though,
Yeah.
once you realize that you're doing it. Anyway, just something for you to consider.
That's funny. Well, we had another one come in while we were doing this, so we might as well go to it. This is from Jeff. He's from Flipside Christian Church. That's a cool church name. Hadn't heard that before. He's just wanting some advice on live stream clarity. How can we make the mix better and more clear, specifically the drums? Well, let's take a look.
You didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love was greater. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a wonderful.
Well, that vocalist is good. She's got some skill, man. Cool. Man, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I've been harping on this whole live stream review. But I think, again, if you get the acoustic guitar fixed in this mix, the rest of the mix is going to sound a lot better, because I could hear some really clean sounding drums under there that sounded really good, but the acoustic guitar was like stealing the show.
I think next live stream review, I'm going to bring my acoustic and you can show everybody how to EQ it.
Okay, yeah. Or we should definitely create a YouTube video specifically about the acoustic guitar.
That'd be fun to watch you do it live.
Yeah, so let's EQ that acoustic guitar. I'm going to give you the same recommendation that I gave the other ones. Set a low shelving filter at 900 hertz and cut 3, maybe even up to 6 dB to thin out the acoustic guitar. You can even go further than that if you want to, but you just kind of want the acoustic guitar occupying the upper frequency spectrums, where mainly all you're hearing is the strumming noise. It sounds like a glorified shaker, and you're not getting very much body out of the acoustic guitar. And the reason you're doing that is because you have other instruments on the stage who are covering that other part of the frequency spectrum, so you don't want the acoustic guitar to get in the way. Now, if the acoustic guitar was by itself, if you're having an acoustic set, you don't want to do that. You don't want the acoustic guitar to sound thin in that situation. You want it to occupy the full frequency spectrum. But since you have a band here, that's what I'm going to recommend you do. I'd recommend that you also pull it down in the mix, and so it's not so much of a in the front forerunner of the mix. Some songs call for that. Most songs don't. In this case, I think it was even like right there at the same level as the vocals. So bring that down in the mix so that it blends in a little more, and you're going to find that your drums sound a lot cleaner whenever you do that. Yeah, it's interesting how sometimes you're like, what do I need to do to the drums to make them? Oh, they already sound clean. You just need to get the acoustic guitar out of their way, and then they'll sound great.
Word. Someone was asking, did you say PEQ filter at 5 to 700 for nasally vocal?
Yes. Yep. With a Q value of like 3 on that PEQ filter, 500 to 700 hertz, somewhere in that range, you're going to put a pretty good cut in there. Cut about 6 dB. You can even go up to, you could cut 9 dB if you want, just make sure it doesn't sound strange. Use your ear to mix. You can't mix with your eyes. You mix with your ears. Yes, the visuals help, but what you're doing is you're listening. Does this sound the way that I want it to sound?
Yeah. A second ago, my wife said, and making sure to pronounce your T's too, because we realized when we were singing "I Speak Jesus" a couple weeks ago that when our lead vocalist sing "Your name is life," she wasn't pronouncing the F, so it was lie. She was saying "Your name is lie."
Yeah, that reminds me of like, even this last Sunday, I was saying something about asking God. You need to ask God, like increase your ask. It's like I was making sure to get that K out there because it could have been real bad if I didn't.
Yeah, and someone said enunciation clarifies the separation of the lyrics. space of the lyrics, especially when you got reverb on there. Your words are going to really jumble together. So you got to kind of do more than you feel like you should do just to compensate for that reverb that's on it.
Yep. There's always a way to get better too. I mean, in every aspect, the vocals could sing better. The vocals could hold their mic better. The mixer could do his job better, her job better. The drummer could play better. I mean, it's not just what you do behind the mixer, but like, how's the whole team doing? How can we engage in excellence as a team together and really all improve our craft?
Because I'm sure these sound techs know that they're doing everything they can, but if they're not giving them a good source to work with, it's very difficult.
It's true.
So help them to work on their singing technique.
As a friend of mine would say, you can't polish a turd.
That's fair. I hope that I never give our sound tech a turd to work with. I was going to say, her vocals were really good, and I think that if you guys did some light vocal tuning like we did, it would make her sound like nearly flawless because she's already so close. There's just like a few notes where she would just be a tiny bit flat, and that thing would just help her push right to where it needs to be.
Heresy, vocal tuning on a worship set.
But on the live stream, it really does. It makes it easier to listen to because nobody's perfect, and everybody's so used to hearing perfectly polished vocals on studio recordings,
Which, by the way, are tuned in the studio.
Yes.
Nobody sings that perfect.
and they do like a million takes to get it really close. It helps the viewer that subconsciously. They're not like, oh man, they're singing flat, they're singing sharp, but when they hear it, they know something's off. It's just our ears are so accustomed to hearing perfect vocals, and I'm not saying anybody should be perfect, but it does help take some distraction out of it.
And that's the goal.
That's the goal.
To get the distractions out of the way so that people can come in and worship and not be thinking about, well, that vocal needs to be tuned or that's too loud or whatever.
Vocal tuning is not unbiblical. I've yet to find that somewhere in the Bible. Yeah, and we're not saying you got to sound like T-Pain. Definitely don't have some vocal tuning like that.
Then that would be distracting.
That would be distracting.
If you want to know how to tune your vocals with the X32 and not like really purchase a bunch of extra equipment, we have a video on how to do that. I think it's called like how to tune vocals without Dante on the X32. Go search our YouTube channel for tuning vocals. You'll find it that way.
Douglas said I was in a teacher meeting and someone was asking about GATE students and I wasn't pronouncing the T.
Well, yep, there you go.
Pronounce all the letters.
Yep.
All right, you want to throw that full screen and I'll comment on the visuals. Getting on some rabbit holes here. Notice I was watching it a second ago. A few of the things I noticed right away. The shot is a little warm. This shot that we're seeing now is kind of green, so that needs some magenta added to it to compensate. The shot that was a close up on her a second ago was really warm. She was looking kind of yellow. And then I think the exposure is a little too bright because I noticed they're looking a little ghostly, and then those accent light bulbs that you have behind them are blown out. I would even recommend that if those are able to dim, I would dim those down a little bit more so you can see the Edison fixture a little bit better. I imagine you probably have those set for the room, or maybe they're just one brightness, and that's kind of hard. But another way you can compensate for that is to put a little bit more light on them, and so you can bring the overall exposure down. But then it might look too bright in the room. So you can see it's kind of a catch-22 with this stuff. You got to first figure out what your priority is, and then go from there. But yeah, for sure, let's see if we can match the white balance on the cameras a little bit better. So let's cool down this shot a little bit. Don't make her look blue, but just natural. And then that wide shot, let's add some magenta to that. The white balance on this one looks a little bit better, but still a little bit too warm. I would even say zoom this one in a little bit more so we're not seeing so much of that wall in the back. There's just a little too much dead space on both sides, I think. It's so hard too when you don't know if they even have a lens that's going to zoom in more or if they have the ability to do the stuff you're recommending. But I like the stage design. I think it looks cool. Just a few tweaks and it's gonna look really good. But good job.
Yeah, awesome. I just realized they had a girl drummer. That's sweet. You don't see that very often.
We used to have a girl drummer.
We did. And she was really good too.
She was.
All right, that does it for this one.
All right.
If you want your live stream reviewed the next time we do this, you need to become a part of our inner circle. You can do that using the link in the description or just go to collaborateworship.com. It's $12 a month. You get access to unlimited coaching calls with Dylan or I. You also get access to our private chat group that's on Slack, so you can get your questions answered really quickly. Usually within a matter of hours, somebody's jumping in there and helping you out with whatever audiovisual problem that you have. So it's worth the $12, and it helps us keep Collaborate Worship going and bringing you great content. So you're helping us and you're helping yourself, all for $12 a month. Go get access to that using the link in the description. And that'll be a wrap for this one. Thank you all for spending time with us today. It's truly been an honor, and I hope you guys have a great evening, or if you're in another part of the world, a great morning. But thanks again. We'll see you next time.
See ya.